Hey now, take a step outside and seize the day now. Set aside your worries, it's okay now. The sun is here to stay. Blue skies, feel the wind beneath you as you fly by. Dancing on a cloud, it lifts you high, high, high. Your troubles blow away.
I'm an active duty Army National Guard captain, so I wear a uniform 9 to 5. I've had the pleasure of serving my country for the past 17 years. My first combat deployment was to Iraq in 2005 and 2006. And war changes anyone. You go back a different person, even if you don't want to admit it. Your loved ones can see it. And for a combat veteran, you need an outlet to kind of heal the soul, if you will. I found my therapy, if you will, through collecting antiques. As I started to venture into these shops, I started seeing discarded items, military items that belong to veterans of all services. So I began to rescue those items, and it's really how this journey began. For Christmas, my mom decided to buy me something along those lines, and she found a posthumous Purple Heart in an antique shop, of all places. Posthumous Purple Hearts are essentially presented to each family after their soldiers have lost their lives on the field of battle. And it broke my heart to think that this soldier who sacrificed his life for us, his medal was just kind of lost along its own journey. And it set me on my own mission to find out everything I could about him. So when I picked up the search, I knew the soldier was of Italian descent. And within the town of Watertown, they have the Italian American Civic Association. So I decided to go over there to see if they knew of the family. They actually led me to some other locations in town, his high school. I actually got to visit the house he grew up in, some of the archival records in town at the city clerk's office. They actually have the historical records on hand, and it listed the entire family. Corrado meant the world to that family. He was well known in the community, and they never really got an opportunity to memorialize the brother they loved. So that family wanted to hold a return ceremony to do just that. And 80 members of their family traveled from all over the country to attend this service. Before the return, I got to witness their first ever family reunion. And it became more than just returning a piece of metal. It became reuniting a family. I started a foundation, Purple Hearts Reunited. And essentially our mission is to return lost or stolen medals of valor to those family members or veterans to honor their sacrifice to the nation. We've returned over 150 medals to date. We receive around 3 to 5 medals a week, a lot of times unannounced. Right now, by myself, I can only return about 35 medals a year, but we're receiving hundreds of medals per year. My ultimate dream would be able to return every single medal that I receive within that year. For me, this is my calling. This is my mission in life, to return these lost medals and to honor these men. It's something that gives me clarity in my life. It gives me closure. Be able to meet these families, to give them a hug, to tell them thank you. It just means the world to me, and it makes me feel like I have a purpose in my life.
Hey, Zach, how you doing? Your mic's on mute there.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now, sir. How you doing?
Good. How you been?
Oh, not too bad. I haven't seen you in a long time. It's good to see you.
It was just as long as that video 5 years ago. Now I got about 3 more chins. So
yeah. Well, me too. I'm actually losing a little bit of it. So
I like the handlebar mustaches. I just kind of want to take you for a spin.
Yeah, exactly.
You
so
look
a lot has changed since 5 years ago when this video was first done. I only showed a part of it, but you're now a major in the National Guard there in Vermont. And I think you've switched, and you're now serving with what regiment you're serving with now?
It's the 1st Vermont Regiment, which is a cavalry regiment. Not like the old school soldiers on horseback. Basically, we are the eyes and ears for the brigade commander, and we go forward of the line and scout the enemy. So I'm getting old, though. 22 years in the Army, it's about time for me to hang it up.
No, you got a few more years left, don't you?
We'll see. Couple.
And a lot has happened in 5 years since that video with Purple Heart returns and Purple Heart Reunited's mission. Can you kind of go over some where we're at or where we're currently at today? With the
from that first return back in 2009, which started as a Christmas present, has now morphed into a decade's worth of work that has taken us all over the country and even internationally overseas. To date, we've returned over 800 lost medals. If you add up all of the items associated beyond just the Purple Heart, service medals, paperwork, jewelry, personal effects, and things of that nature, we've calculated we're about 3,000 plus items that have been returned to families all over the world. We're still receiving on a record number about a medal a day. So it's really hard for us to keep up, and we're really fortunate to have great teams around, being guys like yourself with the Valor Research, and then the Valor Guard, who are veterans like myself, traveling the country trying to get these medals home in a record time. So we just try to lean forward and do the best we can. We average about 100 returns per year at this point, but we, at the rate that the medals are coming in, we have the capacity to do up to 300 plus per year. So that's our objective. That's our goal, is to return every single medal that we receive within a calendar year. Yeah,
you kind of made that one last year, didn't you?
We've made 100 returns over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So we're well on our way to reaching that max goal. But at the end of the day, it just takes a good team of great volunteers around the country, and that's where we're currently building. And unfortunately, with the COVID-19, me as a military man, I'm restricted from traveling until late June. So that's kind of put PHR on a hold for the last month. So it's been a huge challenge for everybody.
Yeah, one of my moderators on here, our epic RV adventure, Michael, he's reserves in the Air Force, and he's kind of stuck at his home base there for a little while too because of the military restrictions on travel. Well,
we need to get you in the RV and out the door.
Hey, I've got a few guys I'll give you some names to that are actually your brothers in purple that are traveling the country.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pull up a couple photos here. Actually, I'm gonna do something else here. I'll put you on the spot. You posted something pretty cool today that I hadn't got to see before, so I want to share it with everybody, and that's that video that you posted on Facebook here a little while ago. And I think it'll let me do it. And I remembered to click the audio this time too.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Purple Hearts Reunited, its mission to return lost military medals of valor to veterans or their families in order to honor their sacrifice to our nation.
A long-lost Purple Heart has found its way back to the family of a World War II airman who died in combat.
In its own spiritual way, it's as if that veteran is coming home again. That last thing that you can touch, that medal has become them.
Thank you very, very much for what you do. My father earned a Purple Heart in Guadalcanal. Very special for everybody in our family.
I've been collecting antiques for about 7 years now. While I was venturing into these shops, I noticed a lot of veteran military items.
Which ones would you like to see?
These ones right here. It really broke my heart to see medals within these shops. So I started to rescue them.
Now, the family of an American World War II war hero being reunited with the Purple Heart that he earned in the Battle of the Bulge.
We receive 3 to 5 of these medals a week. They're being found all over the country in old abandoned homes, vehicles, furniture. Metal detector enthusiasts are finding them buried in the ground. A dog dug a Purple Heart out of the ground about a foot deep. If you could envision it, a Purple Heart has been discovered in that form of fashion.
There was shelling all around me. Then I heard one that just got my name on it.
He was wounded in action, and I'm very proud of him.
It's gone. It's like not really the same.
A shell came right through between the pilot and co-pilot. I thought I was blind. I was wiping blood off my face, you know.
On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your service and thank you for your sacrifice. proudest thing for me doing this work is we get an opportunity to tell the world who these guys were. We need to do something for our country to honor our men and women who have shed their blood in the field of battle, who have sacrificed their lives for us.
Tonight, the Atlanta Braves are proud to celebrate the heroes of our nation's military.
I get an opportunity to re-honor these men who gave so much for us and our country, and that was the sacrifice of their life. And to see how much it impacts a family to get this medal back means the world.
Yeah, that was a pretty good put together video there.
Yeah, we every year we get approached by Hollywood, if you want to call it that, to do some type of reality series, and we've tried the avenue a few times. That was a company out of Nashville called Tacklebox, and we're still trying. I think these stories should be told. I think people would enjoy hearing the history of America. I think that's something we're losing as a society. And we need to remember these men just like you do. You're better at me at it than I am. The research you do and telling the story, preserves that legacy. And, these men and women sacrificed their lives for us so that we could be, standing in front of this flag as a free society, as a free nation. And the work you're doing behind the scenes is just amazing. And you might not see it on a national level, but guys like myself and others appreciate the work that you're doing to keep these legacies alive and educating these families on who those heroes were within those individual families.
Yeah, well, you taught me a little bit about what I know, so
I remember when you first came to me and you were like, "Hey, I'm going to start up my own nonprofit and return medals," and I started looking at some of your work, and I was like, "Oh man, this guy's really good. I got to get him on the team." And obviously that developed into a great friendship. So
it did.
I'm happy to have you as a friend, my friend.
Yeah, me too. And good leadership coming from you and in the organization too. And like you're saying, each of these men and women have a story, and just like that, the medals have a story and how they travel. Can you give us a little more background on some interesting stories about where some of these medals have been found and
yeah, like the video alluded to, they're being found pretty much everywhere. If you can envision a medal being found, we have probably heard about it. They're being found in old abandoned homes, vehicles, furniture. Metal detector enthusiasts are finding them buried in the ground. One of my favorites, a dog dug one up in the backyard about 3 years ago. Broadway shows, so a veteran was wearing his medal and it fell off in the darkness. Airline tarmacs, taxi cabs, Walmart parking lots, you name it, we've heard about it. And once that medal comes to us, we try our best to do the historical research and get it back to the family.
Yeah. And that dog was actually the first dog in history to return a Purple Heart too, wasn't it?
I think so. I Googled it. I didn't find too much about dogs and Purple Hearts, but Smuckers the dog was kind of at the end of her life. But returning that medal, she became an overnight sensation. And every pet store, Petco across the country sent her a gift basket. And so she got more bones than she could even imagine. Unfortunately, she died about 6 months later, but she died a happy dog.
Definitely. Well, in some of your travels, we've had the opportunity to research some really interesting veterans. One of the stories that comes to my mind is, when we're doing this research, it's almost like they're leading us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And one of the stories that comes to mind is Lieutenant Jason Hunt from Vermont in World War I, who was a pilot. Can you give us a little background on that story? Where you were over in France and you saw his name on the walls of the missing there.
Yeah, luckily through my military service, I had the great honor of getting invited to the Centennial event in France last year for the 100th anniversary. And I went with my adjutant general, which was Stephen Cray at the time. And we went to one of the national cemeteries, and we were asked to participate in a wreath laying. And so if you can imagine yourself sitting in a mausoleum, so we're inside of a building, and on the walls were all the unlocated soldiers of that area. Those soldiers that were found had a cross cemetery on the greens, but everyone that was unidentified or not found, missing in action, were basically inside these mausoleums. And my general was staring deeply at one name on the top right wall. And I just gently asked him, "Hey, sir, what are you looking at?" And he said, "Lieutenant Jason Hunt, Vermont." And he was in the 27th Aero Squadron. And he was a pilot. He's an Air Force general, and he flew fighter jets. So obviously he saw Aero Squadron, and that kind of, caught his attention, other than the fact that he is also from Vermont. So I took it upon myself to start researching everything I could about Lieutenant Hunt, primarily to kiss up to my general. That's primarily why I was doing it. I'm not going to lie to you. But over the next course of 2 or 3 days, I started sharing this information. We were bonding over this veteran from 1918. And when we returned home, this is the crazy part. I remember laying in bed next to my wife, and I was checking my messages, and I received an email literally 3 days after seeing this name from his family inquiring about the Purple Heart they never received. You can't make that up. It pretty much brought me to my knees. It floored me. I could not believe that, something like that could happen. But it's not surprise. We see stuff like that all the time. And I do believe that some of these veterans are steering us in the right direction. They're just using guys like John and me as a vehicle. And we do the best we can to get that information or that medal home.
Yeah, that's just one of the many stories that comes to mind. We're in the middle of researching it, and a few days later, the actual nephew who we identified prior to actually contacts us. And it's crazy.
Well, I think there was one that you researched. The guy was my dad's neighbor.
Yeah,
in Tennessee.
Yeah, he was.
So when I called him, he's like, "Who's your dad?" I said, "Hey, it's Don Fike." And he goes, "Yeah, he's my neighbor. I can throw a rock at his window right now." So pretty amazing stories.
It is. It definitely is. I'm going to pull up a couple photographs here, see if it'll let me do this real quick. It's
not my mugshot, is it?
It might be a few of them.
Oh, my baby photo?
Exactly. Just a sec here. I got too many things open. All right. Let me close that one. Close that one. Too many. I'm going to surprise you with a few of these photos.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I don't like surprises.
I was hoping you give us a little background on them. Okay. Tell us about this one.
That was me in Iraq in 2005, 2006. So I've been in the Army for 22 years now. First started my career as an enlisted. Now I'm an infantry officer. That was that was southern Iraq. After the bombing, the initial invasion, we bombed one of Saddam's munition plants in the south. And the enemy was using it to basically dig out munitions and place IEDs. So I worked with a special forces team, essentially digging up those rounds and disposing of them. So that's me carrying a large Chinese rocket right before getting blown up.
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't have a chance to put these in any particular order, so
that's fine.
There's the one. Our Marine Corps friends might know who this or where this picture was taken.
Yeah, that's at the base of Bellewood. That's the famous fountain. It's literally in a farmer's property. You have to jump the gate to get in, so we trespassed, which probably happened quite a bit because I see this photo quite often. But they say the spirits of those men of Bellewood drain down the mountainside, and they come out of this rich fountain. And it's one of the purest waters I've ever tasted. We literally collected some in a plastic bottle, and it was still cold after 3 days of sitting in a car. So pretty amazing. But to say that I was able to experience not only drinking that water, but to be at such a stoic and memorial type location as Bellewood and walk the same ground as those first devil dogs was a pretty amazing opportunity in my life.
Yeah, and that's kind of how they got their names. Devil Dogs was from this, wasn't it?
It was, absolutely.
This is one of my favorite returns that you've ever done.
Yeah, I was actually attending a military school in New Jersey, and I should have been in my room studying for the exam the next day. But I took a small drive about an hour outside of Fort Dix, New Jersey, to honor this veteran's sister. And she was in a community home, and she wasn't doing too well. And the niece asked me to come and present this to her mother. And basically hearing and seeing these items again, she, it was like an energy, volt of energy kind of just flowed through her, and she came to life again. And she began to share the stories of how her brother used to walk her to the school bus every day, and how she felt safe knowing he would be there when she returned from school. And losing him basically, tore a hole in her heart. And this picture specifically, when we presented that flag to her, I could see her literally staring through my soul.
Yeah.
And she wasn't staring at me. I honestly believe she was staring at her brother.
Yeah.
So it was a very significant return for me, just as significant as it was for the family. It's moments like that that really solidify all the hard work, all the screen time doing the research, and all the glass time driving hundreds of miles across the country to get these medals home because of women like that. And she died about a year later, but that medal's still in the family.
Yeah, it brings tears to my eyes every time I see it, because it, just people really can't get a feeling for exactly what Purple Hearts Reunited does until they're there to witness it and experience it firsthand. And you showed that to me when you sent me to New York for the 8-on-7 event one year, and the meaning behind it is just, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, and we're gonna amp up our game a little bit. We brought on a media director, and she's gonna help us put together some videos, and that's something you suggested early on. I just didn't have the tech savvy ability to do that myself. So we're actually gonna start filming some of these returns, and we're gonna get it out there, and hopefully that'll help people understand exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. Get some live streams going for them too. And that's the back of the frame that you were given to his sister, and that's the cutout on the back of the purple, of the frame that shows the actual engraving on the Purple Heart.
Yeah, we would deliver these frames to people, and they would have to basically take our word for it. They say, "Hey, is that my dad's medal? Is that my grandfather's medal?" And because it was in a frame, they just had to trust me. And luckily, we have a very talented framer at the Village Frame Shop here in St. Albans, Vermont. His name is Dan, and he was able to put a window on the back of the frame. So now families can turn that frame around and they can see their family member's name. And it's, that frame is kind of the centerpiece of what we do, and really touches family when they see it the first time. And, being able to read that name on the back of that medal, that symbolizes them. And it means a lot to those families.
And in most cases, it's the last tangible item that the family can ever hold in their hands and to see of that person.
Yep.
It means a lot to them. Okay. Tell us about this photo.
Yeah, that was a pretty neat event. The old man on his knees down next to the kid there, that's Rick Daigle. And he married a woman who was previously married in the 40s to a veteran who was killed in action. So his widow kept all of his items for many years, and it wasn't until she passed that Rick went through her effects and said, "Hey, listen, these don't belong to me. Let's see if we can get these back to the family." So he turned to Purple Hearts Reunited for help, and we were able to find not one set of family, but two sets of family. You've got the New Hampshire family, and then you got the California family. The New Hampshire family was primarily nieces and nephews. California was grandchildren. So this veteran had a young child, and that child, for whatever reason, was essentially sent to live with another set of family out on the West Coast. And they ended up having 4 children. And those sets of grandchildren had never even seen a photo of him. throughout life. So we were able to travel out to California and meet that family and return that medal. And then about a year later, we were able to basically link the two families together and bring the California family out to New Hampshire. And that was their first ever family reunion. So they got to meet each other for the first time. And it's a great example of, this is more than just a medal. At the end of the day, I think the medal is probably the least important piece of what we do. It's bringing closures to families. It's bringing families back together for the very first time. In this case, showing a family member what a hero looked like with a picture they haven't seen. It's endless. The second, third, and fourth order effects through just simply giving something back is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. This is a photo I actually took of some returns here in Colorado that we did a few years back, where I visited Fort Logan National Cemetery and was able to reunite the frame with the veteran. We returned this one to his nephew. Oh, his grandson is what it was. His grandson.
That's one of my favorite photos. It's really powerful to see the medal next to the grave, and essentially you're kind of reconnecting the veteran with his own medal. So that was a stand-up job on your part.
Yeah, I just happened to be working over in the Denver area, and it worked out good. So the next one was a Colorado return too, and it's Sergeant Ebanacho. He was a Korean War veteran. He was wounded in action twice, and I think he received the Silver Star as well. But
I think it was either Silver Star or Bronze Star.
Bronze Star, one of the two. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was living out in Washington State, and somehow his medal had gotten lost, and I can't remember how we came across the medal, if it was from a collector or eBay or somewhere, but we ended up getting his medal, and he was still living. He's living in his son's home in Eagle, Colorado, and we were able to go out there and visit him firsthand and actually return the medal to him. And it was really, really an emotional night. When he saw that frame, Zach, you wouldn't believe, well, this is the first time that he's actually getting to look at the frame.
Yeah, you can see it all over his face. And again, you got to experience, you got to witness it, and you've had that opportunity. And to see the look in that man's face and see the appreciation and the emotion, we've brought a piece of that family member back to them. Whether it's a medal or a frame or a document, to be able to reconnect with someone that you loved and that you lost means the world to somebody. So yeah, you definitely made an impact with that one.
Yeah, it was really cool. His three boys and his daughter were there, and they got to hear some of his stories, and it was a great night sitting down there. And they went out and bought pizza, and we had a little pizza party there at his dinner table, and we just chatted. It was an amazing deal.
Yeah, it's the best when they feed you, right, John?
What's that?
It's the best when the family feeds you, right?
It is.
No, those are my favorite, when you can sit around a kitchen table and just share stories and hear the amazing, behind the scenes stories about the veterans, about how they stole dad's car and wrecked it into a barn, or how they had 8 girlfriends at one time. Those are the stories that I enjoy. But
yeah. Tell us about this one. Three Marine Corps commandants, right?
Yeah, I just had to take a picture, and after I told them I was in the Army, they didn't like that too much.
Oh, I was thinking it was more or less you were trying to be a Marine, so.
I wasn't man enough to be a Marine. Or I took the easy route out and went to the Army.
There you go.
No, but the foundation's been great. I've been able to travel the world and run into some amazing leaders. And, those are some heroic leaders that have made a huge impact for our country. So to be able to shake a guy's hand and say thank you for your service is pretty amazing.
Well, a couple of my mods, or a couple of guys that I watch on YouTube, they're big Chicago fans, so I had to throw this one in there. You want to give us a little background on this one?
Yeah, that was a medal that we brought with us to Chicago to return to a nephew. I always knew of that sign. I don't hate me. I don't remember what street that is, but I thought that would be a cool shot. He was a Chicago boy who died, unfortunately, in Vietnam. So I wanted to find an impactful picture to go with the frame. And right after that, we got it to the nephew. So I believe that's one that you rescued, John, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was. He was a Vietnam veteran killed in action, and it was one of the saddest Purple Hearts I ever researched. His mother was very vocal. I think he was from Pennsylvania originally, but his mother was very vocal in the newspapers and stuff about his death, and they ended up getting their congressman to after they had buried him. She had heard stories and stuff about how the bodies were treated and stuff like that. So they got him to exhume the grave, and in the newspaper it's detailing all this about how they exhumed the grave and found him wire tied up or whatever. He wasn't even in uniform or any of that stuff. It was so sad when I researched that one. But we were able to get that one back. Yeah, I think it went back to his sister or something, wasn't it?
It was a nephew.
Nephew, okay.
Yeah, it was his sister's son.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
She wanted him to have it. And, those stories aren't uncommon. Unfortunately, the government isn't perfect. So we make mistakes. And it's good to know that a family went the extra mile to make sure her son was taken care of. And as you can see, I go to the extra mile to be with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders.
Yeah, it was good that
my favorite football team.
It was good that they got to meet Zach.
Yeah, right. Yeah. My wife wasn't too happy with that photo.
And this one here is another little hobby of yours, I guess, as you're also an entrepreneur.
Yeah, for any military, service person who's transitioning from the military, it's a tough transition. I think that's why we're seeing some of the suicide rates that we are. The military teaches us a certain trade that sometimes doesn't transition or equal another civilian job once we get out. And I think people just don't have any direction. They don't know which way to turn, and they unfortunately turn to drugs and alcohol, or maybe they don't have a strong family network. So we've decided as a group of friends to start early while we're still serving, to start some businesses on the side. We dedicate nights and weekends to trying to build these businesses. And right now we have our hands in a brewery and now a distillery called Danger Close here in Vermont. And, I've always given back through the foundation, and I've never really done anything for myself. And I was never good with my own hands, like my dad, fixing engines in the car. I couldn't really build anything with wood, but I was able to teach myself how to be a distiller. And so now I'm making bourbon, and we've been going for about 2 years now. We've got about 15 barrels aging, and feels really good. It's really therapeutic to be able to sit next to the still and do something like basically create something yourself and create, bourbon. It's really, really fascinating for me, and kind of I find peace through it, and it gives me hope for the future when I do hang up that uniform to have something to turn to. I'm not going to be alone. I'm not going to be lost in the dark. I'll have something to do and keep me busy. And I think every veteran just needs to do that. They need to find something they love, something they're passionate about, and get ahead of it before it's too late.
Yeah. I thought I had other pictures here. Oh, there we go.
John, did you raid my Facebook page or?
I did, man. I did. I had to get all the good photos here. I left a lot of good ones out though, but this is a good one.
Copyrighted. I might have to get something going here.
Public domain. Yeah. And for all my Marine Corps friends here, I had to put this one up there.
That was the return we did at Sturgis, and the family asked me to be in uniform, so here I am walking down the street of Sturgis in a uniform, standing out completely. And old Gunny yelled at me from a distance and said, "Hey, you, get over here." And he gave me a hard time for about 2 minutes. He was obviously just joking around, but everybody knows Gunny. He's a big supporter, or was a big supporter of the veteran community. Unfortunately, he's passed on. But anybody that's watched Full Metal Jacket knows everything there is to know about the Gunny.
Yep. That was a special one for my brother-in-law. You were actually over in the Philippines, and you got to go to Manila, and you actually got a picture of my brother-in-law's uncle's headstone there at Manila American Cemetery. And you
Yeah,
also
my
did.
grandfather fought in the Philippines as well. So yeah, it was definitely, for me personally, it was a great trip, once in a lifetime. I don't think I'll ever get back. But be able to do that for you and your family, and to send that picture, meant the world to me.
Yeah, you also took a couple pictures of some unknown graves for me that that I was actually, they're tied to some POW-MIA cases that I worked on. And after you had been there, there's been a few of those graves that have been disinterred, and they're sitting in Hawaii awaiting identification now. So
That's awesome.
It was kind of cool to get a picture of before, and I'll get some pictures for after they're identified. And that's Dan's frame. I just wanted to throw up a picture of all the framing that Village Frame Shop does for you. I mean, it's amazing work what they do with their frames.
Yeah, Dan, I walked into his shop one day and asked him to help me. And, at first they were doing it for free. And as we grew up to 100 frames a year, it just wasn't great business for him or me. And I just couldn't stand by and, see him give up that much money. So he still gives them to us at a discounted rate. We're talking like 75% off. And he does an amazing job with these frames. They really tell a story. And you're just captivated when you see it for the first time. Even myself, every time I see them for the first time, I'm just blown away. But to be able to walk through someone's home and present that to them definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, and here's another example of the frames. I'm gonna go over on time here. I only got a few minutes left, but there's nobody up after me, so I'm gonna keep going here for a couple extra minutes to get through a few of these photos. But this one here, Lieutenant Commander Murphy, this is another one that, man, the guy was loaded. He was a 3-war vet, and you returned this one in Washington D.C. on, I think it was I can't remember which, was it Veterans Day or was it Memorial Day?
It was Vietnam. No, it was Memorial Day at the Vietnam Wall. So I got to experience that event for the first time. My dad was a Vietnam veteran, so had special meaning for me. Obviously the veteran had an amazing career, but what I loved was his 3 daughters. I mean, you can see them clearly in that photo. They were just the sweetest women. They really were in love with their dad, even over his own faults, throughout life. No one's perfect. And it really meant something to them, and they had their whole family there. There's a photo showing the entire family. There's about 25 family members there. But yeah, we do some amazing returns in some amazing locations, and we try to make it an experience for the families, and we want it to be a memory that they'll never forget.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that kind of threw me researching, because he had Army medals and he had Navy medals. Yeah, and he was actually wearing a special
Mac V SOG in Vietnam.
Yeah, he was wearing that Special Forces beret, and it had me throwing all for a loop when I was researching him. But yeah,
yep.
Yeah, it was pretty good one there. Tell us about this one and where Jess is located at here.
Yeah, Jess Jaggers was Captain Jaggers, used to be our operations director. She's now moved on. She took a job at the Pentagon, so she's carrying on with her military career. But for about 2 years, she worked for us and did over 150 returns. This one was a home of honor return. When a family can't be found, we take those medals to what we consider a home of honor. This particular veteran, Ronson, served with the 101st Airborne Division, and this is at Currahee Mountain. So me and Jess took turns running up Currahee, which is 3 miles up. If you watch the Band of Brothers series, we almost passed out, each of us, multiple times. But we got to the top, and then we took the medal down. There's a museum in Toccoa, Georgia, and we donated the medal to the museum. So now it's on display there. But yeah, to run up Currahee with the fallen soldier, the 101st medal, is definitely a memorable experience.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, a few people in the chat room here, I'm sure, recognize that. Here's a good France picture.
Yeah, Martin Treptow. I don't know if you remember that story.
I do. That's
why I watched the Ronald Reagan speech. I think it was the year I was born, in '81. He talked about Martin Treptow, which was a soldier who unfortunately died on the battlefield exactly in the spot that I'm kneeling. And they found a diary that basically said, you know, with all your might and with all his will, we must win that war. We must win that fight. It became obviously a famous speech through Reagan. But that's the exact location in the small town of France that they found that soldier, and they found that leaflet in that Bible.
Yeah.
If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land, we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, "My Pledge," he had written these words: "America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone." We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
There we go. There's a nice return. You were on Fox and Friends that morning.
Yep, 8 on 7 is a big event we do every year. We try to bring in 8 families from all over the country. We found that bringing families that are all have shared something, in this case loss, have a unique ability to bond and meet new people that share the same common interest or background. So we'll fly those families to a location, typically New York City, and we let the families have a couple days to explore, and then we do the returns together. And that 8 on 7 is a spinoff of August 7th, which is National Purple Heart Day. And we bring those 8 families from each of the time periods. We try to get World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and then Iraq and Afghanistan. So I think, was that the year you went, John?
Yeah, that's the year I went. And that firefighter sitting next to you, you actually returned his Purple Heart.
Yeah, he when he came home, he was wounded in Iraq, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And he was honored in a parade, a New York City parade, and literally lost his medal while in that parade, and it was never turned in. So he kind of just didn't want to ask for help, which is what a lot of us veterans unfortunately do. And we heard about it, and we said, nope, we're going to get you a new medal, and we presented it to him.
And this is another that would probably has pretty special meaning to you.
Yeah, Angie was only 6 years old. It's the little girl to my left. When her father died in Iraq. And unfortunately, I was there in 2009, or excuse me, Afghanistan, 2009, 2010 was the bloodiest year of the war. We lost about 499 servicemen and women. And I was stationed on Bagram, so I attempted to go to all the ramp ceremonies that I could. And a ramp ceremony is essentially the last goodbye before a serviceman or woman is sent home to their families after being killed on the field of battle. And I just happened to go to this ramp ceremony before leaving country. And just recently, someone reached out to me, and unfortunately, his daughter never got any of the medals. It went to an ex-wife. And so we had the unique opportunity to give her some medals for the first time. She's now 16. So 10 years later, she got to see some of her dad's medals for the first time. And I've got a new friend. I've challenged her to work for the foundation, so we're going to do some work together. She's probably going to support us on our 8-on-7 event in New York City this year.
Oh, good.
And it's just amazing to be able to help people, to be able to give back and to do something bigger than yourself. Just fills me with pride, and keeps me going.
All right, getting back to the the beer topic and the distillery. What are you holding up there?
It's 14 stars, raspberry Vermonter wise.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that was the Valor Ale.
No. This is the new raspberry. It's really good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's my friend Steve. Steve is the owner of 14 Star Brewing Company, and he's still serving like myself. And again, we've partnered up, and we just want to make sure our futures are secured. And his flagship ale called Valor Ale, which is now in about 7 states in the Northeast, goes to help support Purple Hearts Reunited. So, through the researchers and through the gracious donors across the country, we're able to do our mission, and couldn't do it without them.
Okay, this is another good one that I liked.
He was a Vietnam veteran and served with the 5th Special Forces Group. He was entitled to actually 2 Purple Hearts. One he received, one he did not. So he was able to go through his congressmen, and they reached out to me to assist in establishing the ceremony. So we were able to do it right at the wall. And he got his 2nd Purple Heart in front of his family. So it was pretty amazing to meet a living veteran and to hear his stories. So.
Yeah, I had a question down there in the chat. Jerry at Happy Place Diaries. He's a retired command sergeant major.
Sure.
Army. He's asking how he can get some of that bourbon.
We're kind of on hold right now with COVID, but it's coming out soon, and it'll definitely be available in Vermont. And then we look to expand across the country. But I can tell you, I've tasted it. It's really good. I'm not being biased. But send me a message, Sergeant Major. I can get some to you.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for mine too. I sent you some of mine. You've never sent any back.
John, you still owe me like $20, man. So give me my money and then I'll give you some bourbon.
Sounds good. All right. And here's another one real quick.
That's Ensign Reuben Kelch. He was a distinguished, like a Navy Cross recipient and a Purple Heart recipient. He unfortunately died right outside of the harbor in New York City. They were hit by, I believe, a submarine.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that the Germans were really close to our shores and attacking some of our ships. But he was a Brooklyn boy, and they named a park, Couch Park, in honor of him. and it's right down the road from Yankee Stadium. And that's his niece, Florine, wonderful woman, and she is a diehard Yankee fan. Don't hold that against her, but I was able to, through one of our sponsors, facilitate her going to a Yankees game, and we treated her to a box suite, and she got presented her uncle's Purple Heart at that game. So it was really fascinating memory for her, and to see her full smiles, enjoying the Yankees, meant a lot to everybody that experienced it.
There we go. There's the one I've been waiting for.
My dad, second generation paratrooper. He was a sergeant major as well, sergeant major. So I grew up, I didn't get away with anything. My mom was also one of the first female drill sergeants in the Army. That's how my parents met. They were both drill sergeants. But yeah, it's great to follow in your parents' footsteps or your grandparents' footsteps. And we're seeing a lot of that in today's Army. About 1% of the population, less than 1% of the population serving. And we're seeing a lot of that service coming from the same families. So there's been less than 1% of the families of America literally carrying the weight of the country. So we can't say thank you enough to our veterans. And I'm just proud to be a son of a veteran.
And speaking of, yeah, I had to go back to your when you were a buck private, before you were an officer, and then instead of having the drill sergeant looking down on you and tapping you in the chest, his brim of his hat was hitting you in the chest.
I don't know, John. I look pretty damn good in that picture. No, I was about $140. I went there at 180, and I still hadn't grown. I joined the Army when I was 17, so that's me at 17. I was a split option, so you had to get your parents' permission before you go to basic. So I hadn't even, started to develop yet. Wasn't until I was 23 I started getting stocky, but it was hard. I couldn't keep on weight, and my mom said I looked like a concentration camp victim when I graduated. I was all skin and bone.
All right. Well, that's all the photos that I pulled off or robbed off you without you knowing, but I wanted to share a little bit of background about you and a little bit about Purple Hearts Reunited and PHR's mission and how much it's grown and just the need for what we've been doing. It's amazing work, and I can't thank you enough for what you're doing and the sacrifices that you've made, away from your family, make these returns and putting together, this leadership that you have on putting together the Valor Research teams and the return teams and everything that goes into the foundation. It's an amazing work, and I just wanted everybody to know about it.
No, I appreciate it, John. You've been a good friend, and what you're doing with this series and the MIAs is just unbelievable. And I'm happy to be a friend with a true patriot. And anytime, any place, man, you let me know and I'll be there for you. And keep up the great work. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. And if people want to contact you, what's the best way to get a hold of you, especially if they want some of that nice Vermont bourbon that has some of it? I think you did with maple syrup, didn't you? That you tapped yourself.
PurpleHeartsReunited.org, which is at the bottom of the screen. PurpleHeartsReunited@gmail.com is an email that goes directly to me. Or basically, if you Google Zach Fike, you'll find our contact information. Reach out to me via cell phone. I'm willing to chat about anything, help you if I can. If not, we can tell some stories and go on our way. But appreciate everyone's support. Appreciate you listening tonight. If you have questions, reach out. But we'll keep it up. We'll try to return every medal that we get, and we'll do our best. That's the least we can do for these guys and girls.
Yeah. Well, Zach, I really appreciate you coming on here and helping me muddle through my first live stream.
I thought you did great, John.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. I just technical difficulties with my first guest on the videos. It wasn't too bad though. So again, appreciate it, sir. And we'll be in touch soon. I got some stuff for you.
Sounds good, buddy. I miss you.
All right.
We'll see you later.
Man. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Out here, buddy.
Thanks. All right, everyone. Sorry I went over on time. I went 12 minutes over, but there's a lot of good information there about Purple Hearts Reunited and what they do for our veterans, past and current veterans. Again, thank you for joining me on the live stream, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. I'm doing them bi-weekly. And sorry I couldn't keep up with the chat. I want to say thank you for the moderators that had been dropping the link in there for Purple Hearts Reunited and Full-Time Dream. And thank you, Ron and Judy, for coming on. And I'll get that bio of Stephen off to you here pretty quick. And again, thanks for joining me, and we look forward to doing many more of these. And thank you for the support. You all have a great night.